Was it just the latest squall in the UK government's long passage towards a negotiating position, or a hissy fit on the part of David Davis, the UK's chief Brexit negotiator? Perhaps even a bit of both? It is hard to tell. But whatever it was seems now, after a fevered 24 hours, to be over. The government rushed out its plan for future trade with the EU, saying, at the very end, that, in the absence of any formal agreement on new customs arrangements, any continuation of the status quo would last no more than an extra year. This so-called backstop would, in other words, have a time limit, and a pretty short one at that. Such minimal fine-tuning was apparently enough for the resignation talk to subside, which perhaps illustrated how shallow, and how much of a ploy, it really was. But this is, in a way, unfortunate, because the issues at stake are still live. Deep down, Brexiteers fret that the Prime Minister is not, and has never really been, on their side, and will weasel through a deal that falls well short of the clean break with the EU that they demand. The backstop, as a temporary solution to the conundrum of the island border, they fear, could become a non-solution that leaves the UK partially shackled to the EU forever. And what if, after the backstop year has passed, there is still no permanent customs agreement in sight? What price, the supposed clarity of intention and timescales David Davis has secured? The plain truth is that the government is riven with factionalism on Brexit. There is no trust or team spirit, and the chief negotiator is at one end of a spectrum of views. It might have looked a wise move at the time for Theresa May to appoint leading Brexiteers to frontline Brexit roles, not least because it helped compensate for her own preference for Remain. If the thinking was sound, however, the particular division of portfolios has failed. And perhaps the biggest misjudgment was the appointment of David Davis to combine the posts of Secretary at the Department for Exiting the EU and Chief Negotiator. At very least, those two functions should have been distinct, as the one faces towards Westminster and the home Brexit constituency, the other faces Michel Barnier across the table in Brussels. David Davis wants post-Brexit relationship with Europe that recognises the history and stands the test of time. That there were already difficulties was evident when the Prime Minister transferred Oliver Robbins, the chief civil servant in Davis's department, to what was described as a coordinating position at the Cabinet Office. But she did not complete the job by transferring Davis to another department or, as a simpler solution, replacing him as chief negotiator. Now I don't want to cast aspersions on David Davis. He is a thoroughly admirable character. His career as an SAS officer testifies to all sorts of personal qualities, from courage to resourcefulness to resilience, that set him apart. He is a man of great personal principle, as when he resigned his seat in 2008 over what he saw as unacceptable anti-terrorist legislation. And his support for Brexit surely reflected something of the same independence of mind, while his sense of principle and responsibility may help explain why he accepted a leading position in the government charged with negotiating the terms. But being an admirable character is not the same as being an accomplished or effective negotiator. In many ways, you could argue that many of Davis's own qualities, consistency, principle and practicality, almost militate against his succeeding in such a role. Not only that, but he is up against a master of the art in Michel Barnier, the French chief negotiator for the EU, whose charm, guile, and long experience of delicate bargaining are some of the reasons why he was chosen for the job. As bad luck would have it, however, Barnier has one flaw as a Brexit negotiator, and it is one he shares with Davis. He appears as French as Davis appears English, and neither evinces much cultural sensitivity or familiarity with how the other side actually thinks. Differences between the French and the English can be hugely productive. They can also produce a comprehension gap that is one of the widest in Europe. At times, with Barnier and Davis, even the translation has left something to be desired. To give them their due, both chief negotiators have striven valiantly to show good humor and get along. But it is hard not to believe that if one or the other, or both, were more internationally attuned, a latter-day Douglas Hurd, a Nick Clegg, dare I say a Boris Johnson, for the UK the talks would have progressed with fewer misunderstandings than they have, regardless of what was going on in the respective capitals. Brexit Secretary David Davis, right, and International Trade Secretary Liam Fox leave 10 Downing Street. Prime Minister Theresa May held an emergency Brexit cabinet meeting in an attempt to resolve tensions over the UK's Irish border plan. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May welcomes Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Downing Street. British fashion designer and environmental campaigner, Dame Vivienne Westwood delivers an anti-fracking letter to 10 Downing Street in London. New images issued by the Grenfell Tower inquiry of the kitchen in Flat 16 where the fire started on June 14 last year. 71 people were killed after the fire tore through the housing block in Kensington. Bishop of Southwark Christopher Chesson and members of the public attend a commemoration service on the first anniversary of the London Bridge terror attack. Britain held a national minute of silence on June 3, 1 year on from the London Bridge terror attack that killed 8 people and injured dozens more. William Buick Reading Massa celebrates crossing the line and winning the Investec Derby race on Derby Day at Epsom Downs. Traffic passes anti-Brexit signs on the County Derry/Londonderry Northern Ireland and County Donegal in the Irish Republic. Northern Ireland could be given joint EU and UK status and a buffer zone on its border with the Republic, under new plans being drawn up by David Davis, according to reports. Eleanor Crossy Malone displays an abortion pill packet after taking a pill as abortion rights campaign group Rosa, Reproductive Rights Against Oppression, Sexism and Austerity distribute abortion pills from a touring bus in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Flouting Northern Irish governmental laws which forbid the use of abortion pills, the group are also protesting outside offices belonging to the main political parties in the province. Women in Northern Ireland have been prosecuted for buying abortion pills over the internet, and it is illegal for a woman to have an abortion unless in special circumstances, unlike the rest of the United Kingdom. The Republic of Ireland voted in favour of pro-choice last week in a referendum. West Midlands police officers carrying out scene searches near to where a 15-year-old boy was fatally stabbed in Wolverhampton. A view at Westminster Abbey from the medieval Triforium that is hosting an exhibition in London. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee Galleries, sits at more than 16 meters, 52 feet, above the abbey floor in the medieval triforium, will open to the public for the first time on June 11, displaying over 300 treasures from the abbey's collection which will tell the rich thousand-year history of the institution at Westminster Abbey. People enjoy the hot weather on Bournemouth Beach during Bank Holiday Monday in Dorset. Chris Ashton of the Barbarians scores against England at Twickenham. Lightning strikes over the City of London. Rory McIlroy took the clubhouse lead into round 3 of the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth. Alistair Cook batting against Pakistan during the first Test match of the summer at Lord's Cricket Ground, London. Home Secretary Sajid Javid speaking at the annual conference of the Police Federation of England and Wales at the International Convention Centre in Birmingham. Felix, too, sits next to messages and flowers left in Manchester, ahead of the Manchester Arena National Service of Commemoration at Manchester Cathedral to mark 1 year since the Manchester attack. Marcio and Andrea Gomez, parents of Logan Gomez, arrive for a commemoration hearing at the opening of the inquiry into the Grenfell Tower disaster, in London. Brackley Town celebrate after winning the Build-based FA Trophy final after they beat Bromley on penalties at Wembley Stadium. Actress Meghan Markle reaches Prince Harry at the altar in St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle for their wedding service. Workers from the Covent Garden branch of TGI Fridays on a picket line outside the restaurant as they strike in a dispute over pay. Members of Unite are taking action on Friday in a row over tips and payment of the minimum wage. A police officer talks to a homeless man in Windsor ahead of the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Wing Commander John Butcher, commanding officer of 617th Squadron, left, jokes with Britain's last surviving dambuster, Squadron leader George John E. Johnson, during an event to mark the 75th anniversary of the dambusters' raids at RAF Coningsby. The Royal Air Force Battle of Britain Memorial Flight was hoping to fly one of the 2 remaining Avro Lancaster bombers over the Derwent and Lady Bower reservoirs, but high winds prevented the aircraft from taking off. 2018 marks the 100th anniversary of the formation of the RAF and the 75th anniversary of the 617th Squadron Dambusters operation. The Dambuster Raids, Operation Chastise, was an attack on German dams on the 17th of May 1943 by Royal Air Force No. 617th Squadron, using an innovative bouncing bomb, which skimmed on the surface of the reservoir before hitting the dam wall and exploding. President of Turkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan speaks as British Prime Minister Theresa May listens during a press conference after their meeting at 10 Downing Street. Erdogan is in the UK for a 3-day visit, which includes a closing lecture at the Tat Lidl Forum in Oxford, an audience with the Queen and talks with Theresa May. The funeral cortege of Alfie Evans goes past Everton's Goodison Park ground in Liverpool. Doctors at Alder Hey Children's Hospital in Liverpool stopped providing life support treatment to Alfie last month after his parents, Tom Evans and Kate James, lost 2 rounds of fights in the High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court and European Court of Human Rights. Daisy May Cooper, the winner of the Female in a Comedy Award for this country, with her BAFTA. Thousands of union members marched through central London demanding a new deal for workers, in an event organised by the Trades Union Congress, TUC. Jeremy Corbyn with shipbuilding apprentices at the Fairfield Shipbuilding Museum in Govan. During a speech he called for Navy shipbuilding contracts to stay in the UK. Dominic Chilcott, right, British ambassador in Turkey, hands over a letter of apology from the UK government to Libyan dissident Abdul Hakim Belhaj, at the British consulate in Istanbul. Abdul Hakim Belhaj and his wife, Fatima Boudka, allege they were detained in Southeast Asia in 2004 and sent to Libya to be interrogated by the regime of late dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Britain acknowledged Thursday that its intelligence agents played a role in the kidnapping and torture of an opponent of the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, a rare admission of wrongdoing by British spies. The coffin of former House of Commons Speaker Lord Michael Martin, followed by his widow Mary, is carried from St Aloysius in Glasgow after his funeral. The former Labour MP died on Sunday, April 29, after a short illness at the age of 72. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan and Labour MP Heidi Alexander. Ms Alexander is standing down from Parliament after being confirmed as London's Deputy Mayor for Transport, replacing current Deputy Mayor Val Shawcross. Arsene Wenger bids farewell to Arsenal Football Club and the stadium he helped to build in more ways than one. It was Wenger's final home game of after 22 years in charge. Arsenal sent him off with a 5-0 victory over Burnley. Manchester City celebrate with the trophy after winning the Premier League title. Anti-independence supporters wave Union Jack flags as thousands of demonstrators march in support of Scottish independence through the streets of Glasgow. Prime Minister Theresa May with her supporters during a visit to Wandsworth Town Hall, where the Conservative Party retained control of Wandsworth Council in the local elections. Jeremy Corbyn outside a polling station in Islington after voting in the local elections. A memorial to George Michael outside his house in Highgate, North London. George Michael's family have since asked fans to remove their tributes from outside the late singer's former homes for the sake of his neighbours. Leicester Morrisman during May Day celebrations at Bradgate Park in Newtown, Linford, Leicestershire. Sajid Javid outside the Home Office in Westminster after he was appointed as the new Home Secretary. Celtic celebrate after winning the Scottish Premiership by beating rivals Rangers 5-0 at Celtic Park. Peel released balloons outside Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool, following the death on Saturday morning of Alfie Evans, who was being treated at the hospital. The 23-month-old died at 2:30 a.m., parents Kate James and Thomas Evans said on Facebook. The youngster was at the center of a legal battle over his treatment that touched hearts around the world. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, right, speaks with British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, left, and Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders, centre, during a meeting of the North Atlantic Council at NATO headquarters in Brussels. NATO held its last major meeting in its old headquarters, with talks focused on strained ties with Russia, a fresh peace effort in Afghanistan and a new training mission for Iraq. A protester wearing a mask depicting Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, flanked by two protesters wearing angry emoji masks protest outside Portcullis House in central London. Facebook's CTO Mike Schroepfer appeared in front of British members of Parliament on the Digital, Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee in the wake of allegations that information on millions of its users was misused. Members of the military work in the Maltings shopping area, close to the bench where Russian former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were found critically ill 7 weeks ago. The area around the bench where the couple collapsed is one of 9 sites to be cleaned in an operation that is likely to take several months. A statue in honor of the first female suffragette Millicent Fawcett is unveiled as Prime Minister Theresa May and Mayor of London Sadiq Khan look on during a ceremony in Parliament Square. The statue of women's suffrage leader Millicent Fawcett is the first monument of a woman and the first designed by a woman, Turner Prize-winning artist Gillian Wearing OBE, to take a place in Parliament Square. Prince William arrives at the Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital with his children Prince George and Princess Charlotte after his wife Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, gave birth to a son. Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge crosses the finish line to win the men's elite race at the London Marathon 2018. Team England athletes during the Commonwealth Games Team England parade in Victoria Square, Birmingham. Varun Chopra of Essex during the Specsavers County Championship Division 1 match between Essex and Lancashire at the Chelmsford County Cricket Ground. The game is being played in the warmest April temperatures in 70 years. A young boy cools off in the fountains in Piccadilly Gardens in Manchester. Not that the negotiators, of course, are untethered operators. And from a plethora of Brexit discussions I have attended in London and elsewhere in recent months, one message has come through loud and strong. It is that responsibility for the snail's pace of the Brexit talks lies not in Brussels or anywhere else in what we must now call the EU27, but in the UK, which has still, a full 2 years after the referendum, and more than a year since Article 50 was invoked, not managed to finalise its negotiating position. But the choice of negotiators matters. Is partly about personal relations across the table, but also because the job, as with ambassadors, entails not just talking, but assessing the mood and communicating back. It is understandable that Theresa May would be reluctant to change her chief negotiator at this stage. The more time goes on, the more such a move would smack of weakness and divisions in London. That said, the weakness and divisions are there for all to see. How much is there to lose? The latest spat has shown David Davis's leverage at home. So leave him at the Department for Brexit, accept his resignation as chief negotiator on a point of principle, a pity that the most recent opportunity was missed, and send someone else to joust with Michel Barnier in Brussels. That someone, and it doesn't have to be a serving politician, needs a stellar command of French, and France, and first-hand experience of how the EU really works. Then let's see how far the negotiations are really stuck, what compromises can be made, by our side, too, and try to arrange what now seems to be the UK's inevitable departure with common sense and, above all, good grace.